Clay, I know that this season has been 9/11 based. The show staying relevant as ever with a discussion about an event that happened in the timeline of the show maybe a couple of years ago, but for our intents and purposes, it's 20 years ago. However, this episode has been nice because this one is much more topical because the crew visits the wet market that spawned COVID in this episode, which is wonderful. At least it would have been, it felt that way maybe 6 months ago, and now that we know it's pretty much a lab leak that actually spawned COVID. But 6 months ago, this would have been fantastic. We would have said, there's a wet market, definitely some bad stuff coming out of that thing.
Hey, and if we had left that wet market with a sexy concubine slave,
we only left with those armadillo creatures that give us diseases. Yeah, you don't get a sexy slave alien creature to play with.
But hey, turned out bad no matter what they left with. So, COVID or otherwise.
COVID or a body scan that you didn't sign up for. We're talking about Rajiin. I think it's pronounced Rajiin. It's either Rajiin or Rajiin. I think it's Rajiin. Spawned the Dolly Parton single, the hit single, Rajiin. We're going to take a break. We'll play a clip from this episode. Then we'll come back and we'll break it down.
How's our guest?
I'm not familiar with her species, but she appears to be in perfect health.
I'm afraid I don't even know your name.
I'm called Rajiin.
Rajiin is the fourth episode of the third season. Came out on October 1st, 2003. It is the fifth of 28 in the Zindy crisis arc. Teleplay goes to Brent V. Friedman and Chris Black. Story credit goes to Paul Brown and Brent V. Friedman, directed by Mike Vehar. In universe date specifically, not known, it's 2153. In this episode, Enterprise takes on board Rajiin, a beautiful, enigmatic passenger with ulterior motives. They do. She has ulterior motives.
I have to imagine that one of those writers is actually a pen name for Rick Berman.
Yeah.
Because I noticed that
it's probably the Brent V. Friedman, which is a fake sounding name if I've ever heard one. Yeah.
I noticed that this seemed to be the first one I've noticed anyway that wasn't credited in any way to Braga and Berman.
Yeah, they don't have a story credit or a teleplay credit.
Yeah.
It's unusual. If not the first time, it's unusual that that's the case.
It was very unusual given the content of this episode, which seemed like it was almost as though it was a tribute episode to Rick. Given the amount of
Rick never left his office during the production of this one. This is the
he couldn't stand up, so
he was installing that button that Matt Lauer had under his desk, whatever, to lock people in there. Tell Nikita I need to speak to her about this part. I'll be in my trailer.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of scantily clad touching, and then I didn't think they could push it any further until they had T'Pol in her skivvies basically making out with this other woman, which I was like, I'm not even going to do the voice tonight because I think it would be too easy.
They teased us with Hoshi, too. Hoshi just has some sexual tension, but she doesn't get down to any dirty touching that we see anyway in this episode. But yeah, it's Rajiin. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a tough one to pronounce. I think it's Rajiin. I don't know. This was a tough one. I usually try to think about what I want to talk about on the podcast before I come on, or I try to desperately, just so I have some goal in mind as something to talk about, have a note or something. I don't really have a lot to say about this one. It's the biggest fear to me is that it actually made me think about Voyager and our potential upcoming coverage of Voyager, which if it makes it to a certain level on Patreon, patreon.com/The File, if we get to a certain tier amount or goal amount there, we'll cover Voyager in its entirety. Otherwise, it's just a curated watch. It left me thinking that Voyager will be tough if this episode is anything like what Voyager eventually does, right? So, which is a long way of thinking. There's not a lot going on here. And I know that's kind of been a criticism of Enterprise in general. However, I thought that at least like maybe the only thing that this one had going for it is that I thought it was tied into the serial arc of the season. Okay. It was like an okay stop in the road for that kind of stuff. But I didn't really like anything else that was going on. It just felt like a really, it felt really empty in a way that like made me wonder what's going on. And the reason it links to Voyager is because like there's only so much of that you can go through before you start to wonder what the point of it is. Enterprise is mercifully short, but I guess that's the difference between the two of them. But it just felt like it's Enterprise's flaw. It's a show that's not really about anything. It's not. There's like nothing to it really. It's just a thing happens, and then the stuff happens. And as I said, the only thing that I really liked about it was the fact that it somewhat ties into the Xindi arc and gives the Xindi the slightest bit of something to do. But even then, I think we have stuff to talk about there too.
Yeah. It continues to have the problem of, like you said, not being about anything when it seemed to have a lot of pieces in place to make it about something, because you've got the setup being that Archer is saving this sexually trafficked woman who obviously turns out to be a bad guy, but like they don't broach anything regarding that at all, or what it means to grant asylum to somebody on the ship or something, you know, like there's or how
why he doesn't pay. What was it right that he didn't pay the guy when he took her away at the end? Should he have paid him if he's going to steal his goods or anything like that? They didn't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah, and like, does it get in the way of the mission that they're on and stuff? This was a very pulpy episode, because it was pretty much all sex and violence as far as you can go on an early 2000s UPN Star Trek show. And
interestingly, her sexiness is also extremely gratuitous in this, because what she does is basically the same as if she snuck a tricorder onto the ship and just scanned somebody randomly and then was like, all right, I'm gonna leave now.
Yeah, it was just like the most alluring, titillating version of doing a CT scan you could possibly come up with.
Go to Phlox and ask him for some information about these guys. It's just
steal the hard drive out of the sick bay or something.
It's just tits, because there's nothing else going on. There's like nothing here beyond that, and that's all it is. And they're fine tits, but it's like this is what it is.
That was Rick's pitch for the episode. That was you just read it off the page there.
This episode is the tits.
It's funny because there was a certain aspect of it that reminded me quite a bit of the TOS.
Yes, which I think is intentional, actually.
Yeah, especially the scene when they're back on the ship and she's getting up close and personal with Archer, and she's about to start doing the X-ray thing there.
They love that effect. They did it in the.
It was cool. Yeah.
They did it in Extinction, sort of, when he's turning into the frog alien creature. They kind of did the same thing.
That does remind me. The one thing that stood out to me at the beginning of this episode that I actually wrote "wow" in my notes is that there's holdover from the fact that Archer was completely physically transformed into a different species and then transformed back. Yeah, he has he's got like a rash or something, but at least it's something. It's not just
it's keeping him up. Yeah, keeping him up at night.
It's not just back to normal. But
here's a question. I don't know how this pans out, but I was thinking about it. Is the reason that scene in sequence is in this because it serves no function for that thing? Are they going to do something where her scans are contaminated because Archer is still part that other alien?
I would be very surprised if they did that.
I would be shocked because that doesn't seem like what Enterprise would do, but I can't think of any other reason why that sequence is in this episode at all.
I would have to assume Well,
she does not come back. I know that much. I will say that.
You're talking about the sequence where he has the hangover from the change thing?
Right, where he goes to Phlox and he's itchy, and it's because he's still partially those aliens, or he's coming off of it. But is her scan of him to get this info for this biological weapon, does it end up failing because she scanned him while he was still unrecovered from this disease?
I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it. It seems to me more that I would be more I would think maybe it comes back in some other way later, for Archer specifically. I'm not sure how.
I don't know how either. I would be shocked if Enterprise did that, because that seems extremely subtle for the show in a way that is surprising to me. But I'm really just hung up on it because it doesn't do anything. It just gives Archer a scene to talk to Phlox at the start, and it's not like it gives you any insight into him. He's like, I'm up all night because I'm so fucking horned up, Phlox. Like, I can't believe that this is the thing that's going on. I don't understand why it's necessary. Any of that.
It seems like seed planting for something that's going to come later, specific to that change and that city or something. But
okay,
that might just be 21st century TV watching, imprinting on early 21st century TV watching. Like,
do you think it's just them? Do you think it's just them being like, hey, we're a serialized show. We're going to bring up stuff that happened last week, so you better pay attention.
Very possible. Yeah. But yeah, in a show like this, in a show like Enterprise, you would think that bringing that up would tie in somehow, whether or not literally or thematically, into the episode you're about to watch. But
yeah, I would expect it to tie into the plot of this episode, but not extend beyond that, because that seems very, like, even DS9, I wouldn't say was like setting stuff up exactly that way where they're going to know where it comes in 10 episodes.
It feels like a very comic booky setup for something later, where it's like you're in the middle of a story and then someone has a thought bubble that talks about something that is the first step towards the Phoenix showing up or something 12 issues later. But I don't know. I'll be surprised if it comes back, but if it doesn't, I won't be surprised. I think I just said the same thing twice, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But yeah, the TOS thing, the scene where she's doing the scan on him and they're like all up close and personal and stuff. Even the music sounded really TOS-y.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, I thought so. And it was that plus the beginning going down to the planet and finding this slave girl and stuff felt very much like a TOS kind of thing.
The market felt TOS-y to me. All of their away mission stuff feels very, partially those jackets that they wear. I feel like it's some sort of like TOS crew production member jacket giveaway that they got at the end of a season. I don't remember Ensign Gaffer. It says it on the back of his jacket. Rajiin is it's not about anything, but I was similar to you. It's like I watch a lot of these episodes and I'm just like, I see they could have done something here. Like I was mostly struck by when she scans Archer and then it cuts to them standing apart and he's like, what the hell just happened? Like it sort of time jumps back. I'm watching that going, they should have made the whole episode about this. Like this woman has some sort of like thing where she comes on board and she is just like, no one can tell what reality is anymore or something. Like it's a power more beyond just like, look at my eyes, look at my lips. Now I'm going to touch your head and you can't do anything about it. Like give it some kind of interesting expanse anomaly type setup. And they did it for the Archer thing just as a way to get out of that sequence unawkwardly. She almost killed T'Pol. I don't even know what she did to her. Right. Like or why it was necessary to go after T'Pol.
Yeah.
Really.
I thought it was like, did she steal her brainwaves or something? It just seemed to be very invasive, whatever she was doing, and really hurt her.
Well, was she trying to kill her, or was that just because she's a Vulcan, it's going badly? I don't know why she needs to scan T'Pol, because T'Pol, they care about killing the humans. As far as I could tell, she was sent there to get Archer's DNA, and maybe she's just doing a bang-up job or something, getting everybody's DNA, but it seemed unnecessary and pointless.
Yeah, I mean, Yeah, unless the point was because she didn't try to scan Phlox or anything, so
No.
it doesn't seem like she was trying to go for it. I mean, but she never met Phlox. But
it's not like T'Pol was the Troy character in TNG who the alien has to take out because she'll be able to sense what's going on, so they take over her mind and knock her out or something like that for the entire episode. T'Pol wasn't onto anything. T'Pol wasn't.
She was just setting up the sexy candles in her room.
Just getting the candles ready. They burn at both ends.
Crack her knuckles and get into the scapulas of the situation. Yeah, I don't know. It's a weird episode. And then later on when they get attacked by the Xindi guys, they've got that gooey gum gun.
Yeah.
That like shoots a booger at the wall and then sprays porcupine needles. And at the end, Archer's like, I need to know the secrets of this gun because it's weird and I need to know how to not get sprayed by gross boogers.
Fucking shot backwards. Reed, get on this. Yeah, I guess
I don't want to use it. I don't have a Kleenex big enough to deal with it.
I guess that's the other thing about this one. I think it does set up the Xindi arc at least a little bit, and this is our first sense.
I still find them so silly.
They are silly. We can talk about them, but they at least set up the Xindi in a way that they are. I both appreciate it and think it's very weird, where the Xindi are clearly overpowering against the Enterprise. Like you can shoot them and nothing happens, right? So they have this power advantage, which is somewhat helpful, or it's at least nice to know that at this far, a couple episodes in, that the Xindi ships are superior. They can move in a way that the Enterprise can't. Their weapons don't do anything against them. At the same time, it does make it strange that the Xindi and the Xindi Council are so scared of the Enterprise and what it's doing. And I know that they have this prophecy that was told to them that the Earth is going to destroy them, and so that maybe that's why they're nervous about it. But the way that they're treating them, it just doesn't seem to line up with like how their power levels go against the Enterprise. It's just a little bit confusing. You can take it into somewhere about the Xindi Council after that, but I just don't. I think the Xindi are developed in this episode, but they're also still just generally weak as a group of villains in the series to this point. But you can go off of that. It's just the. Do we know too much about the Xindi or not enough about the Xindi?
I'm gonna say too much.
Okay, so we shouldn't have seen them. Would be your better take? We shouldn't have seen any of the council members so far.
No. I don't know. I think. Well,
that's what I'm thinking. I would cut out all council scenes.
Yeah, I think the council scenes are terrible. I think they're really bad. The opening, cold open to this episode was just, I didn't know what the hell was going on. It's just a bunch of monsters yelling at each other about like schematics and shit, and like, we can't do that. It's the only recourse we have left. Well, we shouldn't do it. Yeah,
they're making a bioweapon as a backup plan for their laser weapon. Is the point here? Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But like that brings to the forefront, like you got an episode like this where they very easily infiltrate the Enterprise. Just blow the ship up, kill everybody on board.
Right.
Problem solved.
Right. Yeah.
As far as everybody else knows, the Enterprise is the only ship that they send into the Expanse.
The Xindi don't seem to know that, I guess. Yeah, but I take your point.
Well, they haven't run into any other ones.
No, they haven't.
But like, blow them up.
I would say scan. They do have to scan them because they want the weapon, but they should scan them and then kill them. I would agree.
Yeah. They already destroyed millions and millions of people on Earth. It's not like they're gun shy or something. You know what I mean? Right. It's not like they can't fire on them because they don't want to set off a war. You already did it. You already.
They're not set up as pacifists who are. Yeah.
But it feels to me like every time that they have one of these scenes, they're talking about it as though they are, like the wary, the wary people about to be invaded, not knowing how to handle the fact that they're about to be invaded. It's like, dude, you guys struck first. What are you waiting for? Like, why are you playing this why are you playing defense here in a situation where you seem to be able to overpower the ship fairly easily? Just get rid of them.
Yeah, I would agree that after scanning them for the bio information, they should probably kill Enterprise at that point, and it's surprising that they don't. I think that, back to the question of whether or not you know too much or too little, it's whether or not the Xindi kind of sit in this strange space where I don't, and it's your point about not killing them, their motivations are really not very clear outside of we know that they're trying to stop the Earth from destroying them, so they're going to strike first. And we know that they bicker with each other because the reptilian Xindis, and I think one bug Xindi for some reason, were the only ones who chose to do this mission with Rajiin or whatever. So there's this power struggle amongst them. But they haven't got into the core reason for why they disagree with each other, really, or why they're doing things the way that they're doing. And I think that's the problem of showing too much about them. If you didn't show the council at all, and every time the Enterprise occasionally would run into a Xindi with something like this, you'd say, "Oh, I wonder what's going on with these guys. This is pretty mysterious and strange. I'm sure we'll figure something out." And you say, maybe that's fine. Maybe that's a better way to carry the story. Or the other way you can do it is that the audience understands the Xindi completely, and the Enterprise characters are in the dark about what's going on with them. And if you wanted to do that, I think the Xindi have to be better drawn than they are currently. And the show's kind of stuck them in the middle, and I don't think it's a very good place for the Xindi to be as a antagonist for the season.
Well, one of the things I find fascinating that they chose to do with the Xindi is show you them as thoroughly as they do right from minute one of season 3, and show you that they're made up of all these different species and whatnot, and then have the Xindi's species makeup be a mystery to the Enterprise, because I feel like you can get a lot out of that if you're Star Trek is so mono species or special species. I don't know what the word is, but
monoculture.
Yeah, there's always the Klingons. All the Klingons look like the same. All the Vulcans look the same. All the Romulans look the same, et cetera, et cetera. So introducing a species that is, or a culture that is made up of a bunch of different species, is a new concept to Star Trek. And I'm surprised that they don't use that as a story driver more, because so much of what the Enterprise is doing is going, these guys seem to be Xindi, but also these weird werewolf guys seem to be Xindi.
Yeah.
How is that possible? Like, they're building that into it as though it's a mystery, but the audience already knows that they're just a bunch of weirdos sitting around a table. So, and I think there's untapped potential in the mystery and the inferred hostility and danger you can get from having them be unknown.
Are you imagining it like the do you know the concept of Battlestar Galactica? Like what the Cylons are?
I know they're robots, but
they're robots, but they
can change into people, right? Or something.
They can look like people, but there's only like 11 models. So once you know what one of them looks like, you know that that's a Cylon, and that all the other Cylons will look like that person, basically. So there's in the show, there's a sort of subterfuge aspect where you can't be sure who's a Cylon and who isn't, but once you uncover them, you'll know that there's a million other robots that look like that person somewhere living around. The Xindi kind of could have had that aspect where it's you're working with different species and all across a bunch of different episodes, and at the end you go, "You're a Xindi?" and they go, "Yes, we are." And it's like this kind of like learning how deep down the rabbit hole everything goes. They spoil it for you at the start here because they wanted to show the makeup off, I guess. Yeah,
because I mean, like, or if you've got them going down, pulling at one thread about who they think the Xindi are, whether it's the guy who showed up in the ship that blasted the Earth or whatever, they're going like, okay, so these guys seem to be the Xindi. And then in this episode, they get jumped by the Galaxy Quest guys who are also Xindi,
Right.
which they're not expecting. And you know what I mean? Like, so I think there's, especially when you are, the core of your story for the season is sending the Enterprise into a very unknown space, more so than anything else they've ever been sent into, to fight a villain they don't know anything about. It's weird to me that they tell you all about the villain, because
Yes.
it just makes the Enterprise look like assholes.
It does. I think that's the way the show is choosing to do it. I think that, like,
On the flip side,
yeah.
sorry, the other thing on the flip side, if you're gonna I agree with what you're saying. If you're gonna show what they are, the reason needs to be super compelling.
Yeah, I would say that
I would
say that the species thing is just not compelling enough to be
Right.
something to hide from the crew.
Yeah,
But their inner turmoil is. If there's something interesting at the core of why the Xindi species don't get along with each other, and it's a kind of like fractional alliance that is almost splintering at this point, I think that there's drama there because it can be developed, and you as an audience member can kind of get ahead of Archer and the crew in understanding like, this is how these guys are potentially going to fall apart, or how you can beat them or something like that. It's the way the show is doing it. I think I would prefer not seeing the Xindi at all and only occasionally bumping into them and being more mysterious and not a mystery box thing, but just be like, I don't know who a Xindi is. What's going on out here?
especially if you're coming off a 9/11 analog,
Right. Yeah.
and this is all sort of in response to 9/11. The core tenet of
I imagine this is very true to Al Qaeda meetings. That's the council. The council meetings.
yeah,
Here with the Xindi.
but like the core tenet of terrorism in the 2000s was not, oh, I know everyone who is a terrorist. It was
they wear badges.
yeah, they all wear badges. No, but it's strange to, and I guess I can understand them coming at it from like purposefully doing that, being like, well, we want to show that the Xindi are people who are making a decision who are not explicitly maybe bad.
Sure.
To go that route, but they're not really doing that because
No.
the Xindi are talking about building bioweapons, and we don't really know why.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think you need to, if you're going to play that route, if you're going to go for these guys decided to make it, these guys made a decision that was more about self-preservation or whatever than it was just being an evil cabal of aliens. You need to make clear fairly early why that is and what the decision was. I think.
No, I would agree. I think that's
Especially
a good
if you're gonna
coverage.
start with them too. Like
Yes.
if you're going to show them like right off the bat, you got to have a reason to do that other than be like, look, it's a werewolf and a gill man. It's the Monster Squad plus a bug.
Who's your favorite and least favorite Xindi species?
I like the werewolf guy just because he doesn't fit with the rest of them.
I think they're supposed to be monkeys. I think.
Well, whatever.
Yeah. Just so people
it
know what you're. I think they're monkey Xindi or something. Yeah.
Who's the guy in the makeup? Is it the Martian Manhunter? Is the guy that plays Martian Manhunter? I can't remember his name.
The actor's name.
Yeah.
It is. There is Tucker Smallwood is the Xindi primate counselor. So that's Tucker
Okay,
Smallwood.
that's not him. I think it was somebody else.
Randy Oglesby, Rick Worthy, Scott McDonald, and Steve Larson.
No. But that one stands out because the rest of them are all like kind of like lizard people to some extent, or like the
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, the dinosaur guys kind of mix with the water guys, and like the bug guys feel kind of like they're of a same piece.
You know,
and then you've got the werewolf guys that just feel like they're out of place there.
Yeah, it's the humans, the humans and the apes are the two non-reptile dinosaur looking guys. Yeah. What's weird about the bugs is that in the council shots where they're looking down at them, the bugs are entirely CG, which surprises me. I don't know if it was more difficult. I would have had an actor with a blue screen head wear a costume and CG their head onto them. You know what I mean? When you're looking at the bugs, they look really bad because they have to CG their capes that are hanging over the back of their chairs, and it looks terrible. Just put a guy in a real suit and CG his head onto it. Or,
I mean, they're just sitting at a table. Just build the damn thing. Make an animatronic or something, or a puppet or whatever.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, is this going to turn out that the Xindi are doing what they're doing because their existence is threatened or something? Because I feel like that's the only... Based on
that's what they've been hinting at. Not hinting, but that's what Future Guy told them. I guess it's self-preservation. I think that's still the thing that we're operating under, is that they're trying to shoot first, basically, so that humans won't have a chance to kill them. Yeah,
because the bringing back the thing from last episode with Archer, I feel like the only reason they would do that is because the thing he came away from the last episode with in that final scene about not wanting to be the person who executes another species or something like that. I feel like bringing that back specifically and having that stick with him has to play into whatever the confrontation with the Xindi ends up being. Because especially because he's so angry that I feel like he's being driven towards being confronted with
rejecting his anger, like rationality winning out over emotion, basically.
Yeah. It's going to be a put yourself in their shoes type moment, I think.
Yeah. For better or worse, I'd mostly be shocked because Extinction was so terrible that if that was a important plot piece, they just stuck it in at the end of that Extinction episode, where it's just like, I don't really want to kill an entire species. Roll credits and then have to bring it up here again.
Like, is there going to be a moment where they get to the Xindi capital and the entire city's destroyed, and he's like, "Oh my god," just like when I was the Frogman.
Yeah,
probably something like that.
Or just like what happened to Florida. Every destroyed civilization will just flash in front of his eyes, and he'll say, "I can't do this either."
We did that because we need someone to take these weapons away from us. We keep blowing up our own buildings, and everybody's dead here.
I think we talked about the Xindi enough. I feel like we did short shrift to Rajiin.
No shorter shrift than the shirt she's wearing. Heyo.
No, she changes outfits a lot.
Yeah, I don't know where she got all the clothes from. She runs off with Archer wearing like a bikini made out of twine.
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden she's got like fashionable. Maybe is there a fashionable pajama store on the Enterprise that we just don't know about?
Hoshi's a side hustle or something, I assume. I mean, she changes clothes constantly for someone who had nothing and ran away with them. I mean, I can't even really break down what the problem is there, because I don't think that her sexuality ties into anything, really. Like, the point of her power and what she does to the crew doesn't really have anything to say or do about the episode itself, which is largely based on the Xindi plot, I think, of like the Xindi trying to get this information. So Rajiin is doing this plot where you could do it with a tricorder. There's no reason for this sexy time stuff.
Where is she going to hide the tricorder, Wes? There's not a lot of room for a tricorder in a twine bikini.
Send over an incredible police sketch artist who could just sketch out what these people look like. It's not even like I don't think that the show whiffed on its theme and was like, oh, they didn't lay that on heavy enough, and I think they could have gone. I don't think they have anything to say whatsoever. It's just like, we'll just have a sexy woman show up and rub Archer up and down and rub T'Pol's midriff. And they go, okay.
Yeah.
I guess that's it.
I was more interested in like when she starts making eyes at Hoshi. I was like, oh, I would be interested to see Hoshi in a relationship with a woman for an episode, just like casually, and it would have been. I would have thought that's a more interesting story to me than whatever this was.
Yeah. What do you think is the Did you see any upside to? She doesn't come back. I looked it up because I don't know whether it's fair or not, but I was like, if she comes back, maybe I don't have to be as harsh on this as I am going to be, which is not really fair for how we generally cover these episodes. But I kind of had to know, like, is she returned? Is that something that happens?
They named the episode after her.
Named after her. She doesn't come back. She's mentioned in one upcoming episode. Archie goes, this is like what happened with Rajiin, I think, in some upcoming episode. So if anything, that knocks the episode down a little bit more for me, especially because you see her at the end in the Xindi Council, and she doesn't want to betray Archer. And the guy's like, you better tell us about the bio data. And then she does. And it's like, I guess it all just comes down to how bad that plot was, where I laughed out loud when she just eventually cracks in the brig and tells Archer what he wants to know, because there's no reason to tell him. He hasn't done anything.
Yeah, he's just like, tell me. She's like, no. Okay, wait, hold on.
All right, these reptilian guys, it's like, it's so unearned and so silly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very strange. They put a lot of focus on her for no reason other than the titillation factor. She's not an interesting. She goes through no interesting character change. Like, it's not her wanting to save them at the end feels like it's born out of nothing.
Was her origin story that she tells Archer true? That she's a sex slave from birth and doesn't remember her planet or anything like that?
I don't know.
If it's not true, why does she care about what Archer did for her? If it is true, what a strange agent for the Xindi to hire.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a species power that the Xindi would know that this species can do this. It just seems weird.
I assume... I'm going to say she must really be a sex slave. Sorry. Sex worker implies that she has
a W-4.
Yeah. Or, agency of any kind. I'm going to assume that she was a sex slave because I think the implication is that the Xindi swung by her pimp and probably contacted her at that point and recruited her.
But did they know about her powers, or is that just a helpful side effect?
I assume they must have.
Okay.
It's a weird kind of line to draw, but that's the only way I can make sense of it. Is that because they mentioned that the Xindi were there, and they specifically head over to the pimp guy to
also,
talk
the
about
pimp is not in on it, though, because the pimp tries to stop this from happening, which is the Xindi... Going by your thing, I would say the Xindi would pay the pimp to say, you let her go with them. Here's the payment for it. That doesn't seem to be the case, though.
Yeah.
But doesn't she make eye contact with the pimp too? When Archer's like, no, I don't want a sex slave, and he walks away. I think there's a sequence where they look at each other like the plan isn't going the way that it's supposed to be going.
But then I don't remember.
But then the pimp fights for her, and I don't understand why that happens instead of just letting her go.
Yeah, no,
I might be misremembering, but
the only eye contact I remember is between her and Archer, because at first I thought she was a character we had seen before and that he knew her or something. I didn't realize that she just had sexy stroke powers. But yeah,
is she underexplained? Do you think? Are her powers underexplained to the point where it's an issue, or is it just?
I don't think it's an issue. I just think it doesn't matter. Like, would explaining her powers make the story any better?
No, it wouldn't. But is it sexy? Is it a sexiness thing, or is she just kind of like shining a light on? What is it? You shine a light on a deer or something, and it can't run away. Like, is it that kind of a power, or is it that people find her irresistible?
It seems to be some sort of irresistibility, because Hoshi seems into her, like, they don't. She doesn't just get up close and scan her. They go and they have lunch together. It's a little
bit slower for that kind of relationship.
Which is why I was interested in this episode being more about Hoshi realizing that maybe she likes girls.
Hoshi goes to lunch.
Yeah.
Hoshi has a box lunch.
my dinner with Rajiin. But yeah, I think there's sexuality implied with her powers because of the way they manifest and stuff, and it makes the attack on T'Pol fairly disturbing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's
another
weird
Star Trek rape thing. Rape.
Yeah, they love mind rape in the show, in this franchise. The one thing that I did think made it kind of interesting, and this is like a kinda with a lowercase k, is the fact that they lose, is that she actually gets away and gives the Zindy the information and stuff.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but like, again, in service of what in the rest of this episode? It's not really about anything. It's just kind of like the next step in the plot, and that doesn't really do it for me in this show.
It's also I don't know if they're building towards this. I would assume they kind of are, but they fail to stop her from giving away their biological information to the Xindi to make that weapon. They also fail to make that Trellium D stuff that will protect the ship. So it is kind of, I don't know if failure is a theme, but they seem to be setting up the case that the Enterprise just can't get anything accomplished in this.
Which is fine. I'm cool with that. I think you could still tell a compelling story while you're doing that.
Yeah.
I was actually going to say, I'm glad you brought that. What is it called? Trillium?
It's Trellium D.
Trellium D. Because I was thinking when you were talking about that scene where Archer gets scanned and then wakes up like 15 feet away from her or something, and why wasn't it due to the expanse? I think that would be actually a pretty cool episode if she goes to the ship intending to steal this data, but since their ship isn't protected with Trellium D, it doesn't work the way, like she runs into these anomaly problems because the ship keeps getting fucked up. And that then is kind of interesting because now she has something in front of her that she has to get through, and then the Enterprise has to figure out what's going on with her and the ship, and you've got the trying to fix the Trellium stuff. And you've got a few more things that you can play with, I think.
Yeah, and the ship solving that problem fixes her problem, which causes another problem for the Enterprise potentially, because then she can scan them and everything effectively. Yeah, the Trellium, it did lead to what I thought was the cutest scene where they trade the guy spices, and they have a pretty cute callback to like our world fought wars over these things, and he's like, oh, the pepper, I love pepper. That was cute. It ultimately is just a failure of the ship. The ship won't be able to deal with the anomalies, which are also just kind of curiously backgrounded. You know, we had an episode dedicated to them, but even in that episode, they weren't happening all the time. It wasn't like, oh, like this is hell on earth, these anomalies. So it's weird that they bring them up as a big problem, but we never see why they would need to do anything to get around them, because the ship is moving, they're traveling different places, and it doesn't seem to be bothering them. Yeah,
all you get in this one is Phlox making mention to some ensign that broke her arm.
Oh yeah, that's the female ensign he was dating. Her last mention is in this. Yeah.
Oh really? That was her?
The actress dies in a month after this was produced or something, so they stopped.
Really? Oh, that's sad. I mean, I knew she died, but I didn't realize it was. I thought she had already died at this point, but
I did too. But no, they're still mentioning her, but this will be the last mention of her, according to Memory Alpha. The actress Kelly Waymeyer.
Killed by an anomaly.
I don't have anything else to say about this one.
No.
You?
Yeah. No.
Let's go to final thoughts.
Yeah.
We'll play a clip from the episode. We'll read some patron thoughts. We'll give our final thoughts about Rajiin.
Do you expect us to reward you for this act of insubordination? This has left us more vulnerable than we were before.
There's more to these humans than you can learn from a set of biometric scans.
That's enough! Take her.
Thank you very much for listening to the show today. Thank you for listening to our coverage of Rajiin in Star Trek Enterprise's third season, the fourth episode. If you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/thepensky-file. It's the best way to do it. As I mentioned before, a goal is to cover Voyager in its entirety. That's only possible if we get to a certain reward level on Patreon.
Goal is such a funny word to use there.
Financial goal is to get to that level.
Financial goal.
And then maybe we'll cover Voyager.
Threat, maybe. Yeah.
Is it the plot line we talked about here where the anomalies are screwing up both of us and we'll solve one problem and we'll walk right into another problem? I think it's something apt to that. Sure. Patreon.com/thepensky-file. Best way to support the show. A couple $1 a month to get extra stuff, extra podcasts. We talked about Iron Man. It feels like 6 months ago we talked about Iron Man, but it was Iron Man this month and Ultimate Computer, right? Yes, Ultimate Computer. Yes. We revisited the TOS episode.
And Friday the 13th, part 3.
Yes. Yep. It's
month?
part 3, which comes out on, it's already out at this point, but yeah, that came out. And Clay and Amanda were going to continue with their Friday the 13th coverage into the new year in a couple months. And everything like that. Patreon.com/The Pensky File. It's the best way to support us. Thanks very much. And
it's going to be difficult to follow after next month afterwards, because after part 3, we have the final chapter. And then it's not part 4. It's the final chapter. Then the New Blood.
Okay.
Then Jason Lives. Then
Jason in Space.
I'm sorry. No, it's final chapter, New Beginning.
Sure. As you do.
Then Jason Lives. Then New Blood. Then Jason Takes Manhattan. I think that one actually does have a subtitle. I think that's Jason Friday the 13th part 8. I believe is actually what that was called. Jason Takes Manhattan. And then you've got a rights change. So you've got Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. Jason X, Freddy versus Jason. Then Full Circle, 2009, Friday the 13th.
Patreon.com/The Pensky File if you want to hear all of that. And as always, a special thank you to our captain.
That explanation that I just did, if you go there, it just plays on loop when you go to the Patreon page.
Ben Douglas, Tarek Latif, Joint Mango, Kyle Barrett, Mike Burnett, Michael Pond, Matthew Ross, Andrew Sherlock, Samuel Custer, Cardinal Doomsday, Matt Cutler, Nick Sergi, Grim Santo, Sean, Christian Pouch, Bradley Killens, Dwayne Hackett, Darth Moss, Kevin Reyes, Jordan Cooper, Vol 13 Hero, Russell Elledge, Rune Vendler, HH28, Stefan Minton, Derek Zajac, Paulo Roscoe, Jacob123, Point Extra G, Nick the Rat, Mike Harris, Captain Brazen, Eric Antoine, Jakey's Gamer, Kevin Lowry, Groppler John Zorn, Corey Martin, Patrick Seba, William Scheisler, Rayhan Jaffer, Soylent Blue, Zane Majors, Dave Davies, Retail, Olivier Pardue, Worf's Tiny Brown Dicks, Tom Hickey, Jose Hunter's EWNF remixes, Captain Mick Munchausen, it's cut off, that's why I have to remember from memory, and then James McLennan. Thank you very much, guys, for supporting the show. Let's go to your thoughts. If you're a patron, you can leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes on the Patreon page. Go to the post at the top of our Patreon page. If you're a patron, leave your thoughts about upcoming episodes. Here we go. Jakey's Gamer says, Rajiin, or Tempter, Scanner, Soldier, Spy. The way Rajiin gets onto the ship requires a series of fortunate coincidences, but once you look past that, I like the concept of what they're doing here. I found this mostly entertaining. I appreciate the carryovers from the previous episode and the beginnings of dissent among the different Zindy species. I also enjoy the payment scene with the spices. It makes sense that in intergalactic trade, something relatively unremarkable to one species would be valuable to another. Minus points for the horrible delivery of Rajiin's final line, a low 3 out of 5.
I do remember that too. I thought she was okay in the episode, and then that last line, she just totally.
What's the line? I'm totally missing.
I don't remember, but it stood out to me as being very,
very
poorly
bad
delivered. Yeah.
It's in the Zindi Council, I assume, is what you're talking about. Okay. Russell Elwood says, Rajiin, Brandon, I've got an idea.
Wasn't his this time.
Matthew Ross says, the spice trading scene was, for me, the best part of the episode. Of course, Earth spices are exotic and alien to other species. You do have to wonder why the Xindi even believe that humanity can defeat them. Their weapons are useless and ineffective, and luckily only one ship was sent. Still very horny of an episode. Whom is providing strappy dresses and lingerie? Oh, Rick was loving it. Girl on girl. That's hot. 2 out of 5.
I would have loved a scene between Trip and Reed, where they very briefly consider leaving Enterprise to open up a business selling spice because of how rich it would make them. That would be a good scene.
That's
Trip comes in and he's like, I was just talking to the chef. He says if we leave the ship now, we can open up a spice trading point and be millionaires by the end of the month.
They don't have remember, they don't have replicators. They've doomed the ship to an internal trip of no spice in their food. So it's
all
not without
boiled
trade-off.
food from now on.
Nick the Rat says, I really enjoyed this episode as well. Anyways, Trip is hot. Clay, what's the last snack you've enjoyed? Do you have a snack you enjoy? Any spice? What's your favorite spice out of the spice rack of stuff that they had there?
My favorite spice. I didn't see everything they had. My favorite spice personally is red pepper flakes.
Yeah, red pepper flakes are good.
But you know what? I eat eggs for breakfast every day, but I have egg whites, and I put a bunch of turmeric in. And not only is it good for you, but it also makes the eggs yellow, so it feels more like you're having regular eggs.
You don't go saffron, which will also make it yellow, but costs you $57 per egg to put a little bit of that in there.
No, I didn't. I've never tried that, and based on that price, I probably won't.
Yeah, I think it's saffron. I think saffron's extremely expensive. I like oregano goes in everything, so maybe I'd have to pick oregano.
I feel like oregano's too strong. Like a little bit goes a long way with that stuff.
The weirdest spice to me is a bay leaf, which every soup has you put a bay leaf in and then you take it out. And I don't know what the bay leaf does, but I have to do it, apparently.
All I know about bay leaves is I always end up getting a mouthful of bay leaf.
The bowl, the chili bowl with the crunchy bay leaf in it. I would say mustard is my favorite spice. Any kind of mustard I generally like. That's it for that comment. I thought I had something else to say about this. Oh, we didn't talk about, let's just, we'll wait, actually. I'm sure there'll be a comment that'll kick it off. Royo says, Archer gets seduced by an espionage agent again. It's not the first time it's happened. It won't be the last one. Azorian slave girls will get a turn. Even within Enterprise, this episode concept has been done to death. Libera tutete... Oh, now that I have to read it, it's the Event Horizon. Libera tuteme ex inferis, 0 out of 5. Kyle Barrett says, well, I thought the last episode was terrible, and this one isn't much better. I do give the show credit for being fully committed to serialization. The writers make this potentially generic plot specific to the Zindy arc, and Rajiin's actions will have consequences, plus Archer is itchy after getting turned into an alien, so that's something. I think the opening council scene gives too much of the game away, and it's obvious from the very start that Rajiin is there to collect semen samples from the crew. Although when she said her species knows tricks which makes them perfect sex slaves, I was expecting her to start firing ping pong balls out of her vagina rather than turn into an MRI machine. While the episode is trying to be sexy, I don't think anything comes close to Trip describing how he and Malcolm purged a clog injector assembly together. A generous 2. If you're a man and don't like this episode, you must be gay, out of 5. Which is true.
I forgot about that scene when Trip's talking to T'Pol and they're talking about purging the thing, but he's worried about Reed making a really like harmless joke about getting finger blasted by T'Pol or whatever he says.
Yep. That's what I was going to talk about, I guess, that comment. We didn't talk about their Vulcan neuropressure scenes, which are definitely improving. They've moved away from this tee-hee-hee, it's not about sex, but it is thing, and they've just turned it into like... I actually like the fact that the crew... Trip is concerned that the crew thinks that they're fucking each other, and he's like, we can't do this because... for whatever reason I have to come to your room and do this, but like outside of that I think that it's a bad idea and she doesn't care. I still don't think that the amount of time we're spending on this is not amounting to anything. Whatever this turns into, I'm not going to be like that was a well-deserved path that we had to travel down, but at least it's not what it was the first time we saw it in the Zindy episode, the first one.
Yeah, I'm going to be interested. I'm interested to see where it goes, only because Jolene Blaylock plays it convincingly Vulcan enough where I don't feel like they are, every time we do one of these scenes, they're getting a little bit more like intimate with each other. It's
much better at that. She's definitely more Vulcan-y clinical about this at this point. And Trip is too. Trip isn't going like, oh, boobies are hanging out. I got to point in. Yeah.
So if this ends up being the long way around to get these two characters together, I don't know how much that's going to feel organic. You know what I mean? Because
I would say worthwhile. It's been in every episode.
Yes.
Every episode, it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So if the end of this massage subplot is the two of them getting together, it's like, well, it feels like it would be done because T'Pol feels like it's the logical thing for them to do at that point, you know, because she even kind of like hints at that, not hints at it, but what she says in that scene kind of feels of a piece with what I just said, because he's like, yeah, I mean, I don't want them to think that we're you know, sweet on each other. And then she's like, well, there are subordinates. It's none of their business, even if we were. And it's like, oh, okay. So she's down to clown, I guess.
Yeah. That's a very Vulcan-y come on sentence, I suppose.
We've been spending a lot of time together. It's only logical for us now to touch butts.
We'll retroactively marry ourselves. We've been married for 6 months at this point, Trip. Good to know you. Thank you, Kyle. Next comment. Point Extra G says, I suppose I should have known that the next logical step for T'Pol would be some mild girl-on-girl action. Archer accidentally gets a sex slave, and of course it's obvious that something else is going on. Nothing of much interest comes from it. I can applaud them for following through with the season storyline, but I don't know how much this episode really helps it. I know what they're going for with the Xindi Council, but it's really just not working. Thank you. Colonel Doomsday says, a treacherous slave girl and the reptilian Zindy. How did we get so fortunate? I wanted Phlox to go down to the market so we could have a field day too. Reed is just jealous because he's not getting any neural pressure. I enjoyed the use of pepper for barter and was dismayed by how easily the Xindi boarded the Enterprise. I wonder if Rajiin was killed. 2 organic grenades out of 5. It's a good point. Reed is just jealous at this point. Reed's just a weak sauce person.
I also was kind of dismayed at how quickly they got onto the Enterprise. It's like they're pulling up to the outer airlock, and then Archer's like, shit, did anybody lock that? It's like, nope, they're already in. It's like they forgot to lock the door, so they just walked right in. I do like the reptilian Zindy's like slinky armor though. That's
do you recognize their costumes actually? I realized what they are, and then it was confirmed on Memory Alpha. So if you take away their slinky arms, they are a recognizable outfit from one of the movies. Does that help? One of the Next Gen movies. They're purple and shiny.
Is it it's not the Remans, is it?
Yeah, it's the Reman. It's the Reman uniforms have been repurposed for these guys.
Oh, cool. Why not?
Yep. And they stuck slinkies on their arms to make it a little bit different.
Gotta make back that money they lost on that movie, I guess.
I've noticed this was a generic Enterprise action episode, one that I didn't think really supported. It moved the plot, but it wasn't interesting action to me.
I was very I mean, maybe she wasn't really a slave girl because she acts like a super spy once she starts going out and like phaser blasting people. Mm-hmm. I did think it was really funny that they do this like slow motion. She leaps
and lands on her back.
Yeah, she comes down hard. She doesn't like roll into it like a cat or something. She comes down like a wrestler and just full back on the hard floor.
It was just more to her strange power thing. It's like, she doesn't have to be a graceful somersault, land like a cat on all fours, and then like run out the door or something. As Reed goes, "What the hell was that?" She just drops 20 feet right on her back and is like, "That's it. I got to run out of here." Mm-hmm. It was a bad action episode. Led me to notice 2 things. The first one is I'm getting a little annoyed by the way that Reed runs down the hallway with a phaser. Because he does it the same way every single time. And after my favorite thing in the episode after the spice trade was after the Xindi board the ship, right? They blow open a door that allows them onto the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. Archer chases them away. They go back to the blown up door that they came in on, which is still blown up, and they leave that way. Archer runs up to the blown up door and hits the button, and the communicator on the blown up door still works, and he's able to call Reed. And that was my second favorite moment of the episode. They built the communicator to last.
Separate circuits.
They should have made the door out of whatever the communicator was made out of.
I also liked, we didn't talk about the suicide gland that the Xindi guys have like up under their under their armpit.
Yep. Was it under their armpit or is it just in their?
It was it was like somewhere up like right near the shoulder, I think. So you like the hand under your arm like fart thing, but it kills you.
Well, that joke kills every single time anyway. So that's obviously where it's coming from. Yeah, I don't know what the point of that is. It's just to not have the reptilian Xindi get tortured by Archer.
Well, because I was when that one Xindi stayed behind, I was like, honestly, let her go. You've got a Xindi now, right? You've got a live Xindi. That's a pretty good get, but obviously, he's got the death gland. So
feels like a script change that was made on set. As the director's like, wait, we've got a live Xindi? Get the writers. Oh, he's got a suicide gland. We'll have a scene.
Sure.
Right, go with it, Archer. Talk about it. That's it for the comments. Thank you, patrons, for leaving your thoughts about Rajiin. Clay, on a scale of 1 to 5, what are you going to give this one?
Probably a 2.
I give it a 2 as well, I think. I do like the
Nice costuming.
I am somewhat impressed with the show and the way that it's handling the Zindy arc. I wouldn't say that it's nailing it. I wouldn't say that it's doing anything revolutionary, but the season does feel to me like they are searching for the Zindy, and I'm not sure why, or I'm not sure about like the stuff that's happening on the outside of that general idea, but I still do feel that it's nice to have the show have that backbone of something going on. I feel that even in weaker episodes, you can fall back on like, well, we'll tell them a little bit about the Xindi in this episode, and that's enough to get us through. And this is a 2. It's not a good episode, but it has that going for it.
Yeah, whenever you're stuck, just be like, he works for the Xindi?
Dun, dun, dun.
Plot twist.
Think about this episode in season 1 is all Rajiin for no reason. And then you get to the end and be like, what the fuck was the point of that? Why did that happen? Here, it at least feels like you have half of a point that you're trying to make.
Yeah, in season 1, I guess she would probably just be stealing.
She'd just be a mysterious alien that's stealing DNA for some reason and is hurting people who she steals it from.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, arguably maybe season 1 or season 2 would take the opportunity to get into more interesting ethical questions or something.
They wouldn't have.
Yeah, probably not, but it would probably just be a very loose copy of like Pretty Woman or something based on the way that they usually do these things.
So we're both going to give it 2. Do you have a wrap up sentence about this one?
My favorite 90s band is Rage Against the Rajiin.
Not bad. Pretty good.
That's not, that doesn't actually, nothing I said means anything. None of those words mean anything together.
That's it. Thank you very much for listening today. Patreon.com/The Penske File is the best way to support us. You can go to thepenskypodcast.com for all the old episodes, because we only got allowed 300 episodes in the podcast feed. All the episodes are over there. And otherwise, the YouTube channel continues as normal. And everything's there. Clay, do you have anything you want to say?
I don't know what week this is, but we've got a new Rotten Horror Picture Show that either is coming out or should be out this week. We are doing Dario Argento's Deep Red, our first trip to Italy for some 70s Italian horror with a blistering prog rock soundtrack. So join us for that one.
My favorite Krista Berg song as well. Is that guy's name?
That one.
That's that lady in red dancing with me.
Is there a sequel called Deep Red?
There is, yeah.
Is it?
I was trying to build off your Rage Against the Machine.
Yeah. I think there's too many. The plank you need to get to that one might be a little too long.
It is. That's it. Deep Red is out. All the other shows continuing. I guess that's it for us. Excuse me as I yawn. I made it all the way to the end and then I yawned. All right, guys. Thanks very much for listening. Oh, I guess what's the next Enterprise episode is Impulse, which is we were wondering, like, it's the Event Horizon episode. Those Vulcans do come back, and it's an episode.
Oh, really?
And it's an episode called
sweet.
Impulse. Yeah, so that'll be fun. See you then.